Well, the Sharks head to the happiest place on earth and are feeling sad. A rough loss in the shootout. We'll break down the Ducks' victory over the Sharks and more right now on Teal Town After Dark. Good evening, everyone. It is February 22nd, 2022. The Sharks lose in the shootout 4-3 over the Anaheim Ducks. Good evening and welcome to Teal Town After Dark. This is your live interactive Sharks postgame. We do this after every game, and if you want to be part of the show, here's how you do it. Chat with us and fellow Sharks fans on the page or the app. Of course, follow us on the social, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, Reddit, Discord, and find everything at tealtownusa.com. And it is a great pleasure to welcome in our very good friend, a friend of the show. I think you were like the original one. Take that, Brody Brazil. Chilean Goldman from NHL.com. How you been, my friend?
Doing well. It's so nice to see you.
Great to see you as well. I mean, it's always nice to have you around. Again, as I've said, you were one of the original supporters of us in the wee early days of Technology After Dark when we had only 4 subscribers. So it's great to see you. It's great to see you grow with your stuff at NHL.com. And I'm feeling the Iron Maiden outfit you got going on tonight.
Thank you. This is this is one that I've gotten away with wearing since this is my 9th season. They kind of let me wear whatever I want to the tank, but I'm thinking this is one that I would probably get into the box and they'd be like, "No, Shalana.
Like,
let's calm it down."
See, they
so
can't
this and a
calm it
couple of
down.
my Slayer tees probably shouldn't go to work.
But see, they had that album collection, so I'm thinking if you get those shirts, they kind of would be,
I
just
like
saying.
this.
I mean,
I like a fashion loophole. Big
I'm
fan.
I'm just saying. As for me, it is 2/22/22, so of course I'm feeling 22. Dan
You
Mother
had to rock the
Puckham.
Dan Boyle.
Yeah,
Of course.
his game worn jersey from 2010. The one he wore when he inadvertently put the puck in his own net against.
Inadvertently.
Ah,
Bless that man.
but yes, love that guy. But so let's get to this game because Sharks have lost 10 of their last 12. They've lost 6. Well, let's put it this way. They haven't won in 6 games. They picked up points here and there, but Ryan Dzingel makes his Sharks debut. What did you see from him? What were you getting from him? I mean, I'm sure it's been a crazy trip all over the country or all over the continent for that matter.
Well, from what I understand, he didn't even go all the way to Toronto. I think he stayed in Arizona, which is, nice for him. He didn't have to do the whole cross country thing, which was nice. I liked what I saw from him tonight. He generated a lot of offense. He drew that penalty late, in OT, and he was a really good compliment on Couture's wing. That's something I really saw. Once Timo Meier was moved off of Couture's wing, you could see that they had a hard time putting guys there who could fit well. And Balcers looks really good there, but with him being in and out hurt a lot, you didn't see him have a lot of flow. And as good as Couture is, he has to have a good supporting cast around him. I liked what I saw from. I liked how Dzingel complimented him with Balcers on the other wing. I thought he looked pretty good, and that was a highlight. And this wasn't a bad game necessarily,
No.
but they you lose 6. You lose every game coming out of that long break. And even though this was, the best looking out of all of them, once you don't capitalize on that power play in OT, and that was, I think, their weakest of all of their power plays, Hurdle couldn't get anything going tonight. He looked good in the faceoff circle, but even though he was present in front of the net, he just couldn't get his stick on anything. And so, there were a lot of positives in tonight's game. I thought they came out much stronger. I thought they were stronger throughout the game. But but there's still those defensive lapses. And James Reimer, he's his throughout his career, his best work has always been when he works in a tandem. That's just kind of how he functions. I think you and I have talked about that before. And that just hasn't happened for him. And you can see that he's feeling frustrated, and he's a very cool and composed guy, but you can see that it's starting to get to him. And, when you have a defense in front of you, that's going to let stuff get back to you that much. That makes it even harder. So yeah, they scored 3 goals tonight, and that's good, but they also gave up 3. And you're not going to get over the hump doing that every night.
Yeah, and that's always been the tough struggle here. I mean, I think the number of times we've said on the show, it's not completely James Reimer's fault. He's had misses here and there, which are going to happen. Or like the one goal that made it 1-0. I mean, like the Sharks had a pretty solid first period, but then they get caught up ice. I know Burns was pinching on that play, but then all of a sudden it's a 2-0. I think I even saw Couture like, what the heck? Go up there.
It's some of those lapses, and the Sharks particularly right now are one of those teams where literally any and every mistake that they make ends up in the back of their net. That's just kind of where they're at right now. They can't afford to make all of these mistakes. And if they get the win tonight, they're within striking distance of Vancouver. And that's and the other problem is that everybody ahead of them in the standings is winning right now.
Yep.
And doing things. And it's, again, like tonight was definitely better, but you can see it with certain guys that frustration has really sunk in, and they're really, really struggling with it right now. And, OT win tonight really would have helped them get over the hump. And they've got some tough teams. They've got 2 tough Eastern Conference teams coming in the next 2 games, and a back-to-back on top of that.
Yeah, they have 3 games in the next 4 nights. They have the Islanders, who, let's be honest here, they have struggled at times this year, but they've gone to the Final Four the last couple of seasons, no matter how many games are played. Then you have Boston, which is always tough. We saw what happened early in the year with the Sharks. Then you have the Seattle Kraken, which have been a thorn in the Sharks all season long, which is something you don't want to really see. But I thought after that 1-0 goal, they still carried that period. They got Couture on the board. His I think it was his 16th from Burns, and then Burns gets off the schneid, his 5th from Nieto and Meyer. I think it was his first goal in 16 games.
I think it was 16 was what Brett Hedican had said. And I mean, it was back before the break. I remember looking and wondering, when was the last time that Brent Burns got a goal? And to get, and that was so great. But then, later in that period, he does something goofy again. And, he's been a player where he does something, silly, but then he scores a goal. And it's always been very back and forth when he's not generating offense and he's just making those mistakes. That doesn't look good. It's definitely good that he, that he was able to score there. That's good. I know that he's carrying a huge workload with Carlson out, but still, you've got to play cleaner than that, especially when you're, especially when you're playing for a team that's on a really long losing streak. You've got to tighten up.
Yeah, I'm looking at the time on ice tonight. He played 30-25, which is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's the first time he's gone over 30. Granted, this game went into overtime, so 30 out of 65. But Milosh played 20, Middleton played 21 minutes, Ferraro played 24. Šimik and Vlasic, were 11:46 and 10:34 respectively. To me, that's still a concern that you keep throwing those guys out for half the time the other 4 of the 6.
Yeah, that is a concern. It's there is a slight benefit to the fact that Ferraro can eat up more minutes than he did when he was a rookie. That's definitely good. Milosh has really stepped up. But to have to have 2 veterans like Vlasic and Šimik who can't pull their weight, that's not good, especially for Vlasic. having covered him all, 9 seasons I've covered the team, and watch him go from, you know, top pair guy to, oh, you're playing less than half as much as, 4 other defensemen. That's not good.
No, and it doesn't help contract wise either,
No.
because that just magnifies it completely. What did you take from the hit that Dzingel got on Delorier, and of course it led to a good bout for Jonah Gadjevich along with Nick Delorier. I thought it was
That
nice
was a
to
good fight.
yeah.
That was a good fight. I like Gakovic has a lot of grit. I really like his grit. That's something that Bob has pointed out before. I like what he brings. I like what he brings to that fourth line. He's he has that physicality that bottom six needs. And that was a good scrap. It was, and I liked that the officials kind of backed off and let them go for it. Because that was one where I think they were almost thinking about getting in there, and then they didn't. But I like that they got that scrap, especially because I'm not one to say, oh, well, the officials got that. I'm not one to be like, oh, the officials got this wrong, got that wrong. They were too in favor. Da 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 da. I thought the Ducks got away with a couple hits. The Ricky Raquel one is the one that really stands out to me, because that was dangerous. And the way he reacted afterwards, I don't think it was intentional, but that's still a penalty.
Right.
You can't get around that. And there were a couple other ones that were like that, where but then the Sharks would get called for something similar, and you could see Bob on, you could see, the camera on Bob's face, and he's like, okay, well, how does that work?
Exactly.
No, I did think it was a bit lopsided. I mean, the game still ended up tied and going into overtime, so it wasn't, the Ducks getting a power play that puts them like way beyond, which I think would have been a huge problem. But yeah, there were a couple hits there that were really dangerous. That Raquel one, which was really, really scary, because that could have,
that could have been really bad,
concussion.
especially how Balcers went into the boards with the shoulder.
Yeah.
But after that one period, hey, they scored a goal in the first period. It's like the first time in like 5 games. First period lead since they played in Florida.
Huge. Seems like months ago.
It's the little things, right?
Right.
Then the Sharks kind of got into some penalty trouble in the second period. Barabanov takes a couple of penalties there. Ricard Raquel decides to go on a tear. He gets 2 goals. But I liked Couture getting on the power play. I know he didn't get an assist on the goal on Couture's second of the game, but I really like how Dzingel kind of calmed down everything, kind of just dangled the puck, then set up everything, and then it just started to flow a lot better on that goal.
Well, like I said earlier, I like how quickly he assimilated. He gelled really, really well with Couture throughout this entire game, and that's a really good step going forward. And he really did have sort of, because the power play has been so pass
right
the last couple of games. This game I thought it finally looked better. And so he brought an element where he kind of calmed the pace down and kind of slowed it down, actually, for like both units. And so, I thought that set up nicely for Couture's goal. I thought that was big. It wasn't about him making some big pass or anything. It was very. I liked it. It had really good flow to it.
Yeah, and that's what they need, especially on a power play, because look what happens when you score. You make them pay. You make them think secondly about taking calls. And I believe the Sharks were 1 for 5 on the power play tonight, and it could have been a lot better, especially how they were shooting. Honestly, Shalina, they played a pretty good game. They just had a rough draw on the face-off draw where Raquel ties it up. But face-off 61%. They outshot the Ducks 43-29. Overall good win. But I thought in the third period they kind of lost their boost or their power a little bit.
I mean, they went. I mean, the third period was very back and forth. I thought both teams tightened up defensively, and neither one really went for the throat. Um, so that was. I mean, Delore almost had the bare bond of buzzer beater
Yeah.
right there at the end, which he did not. But yeah, I thought both teams they kind of mirrored each other, and they both kind of buckled down, and neither one of them really charged to get that fourth goal. Which I thought was kind of interesting because the Ducks are also trying to move their way up and get into be in the playoff discussion. So yeah, it wasn't. But I mean, like you said, it wasn't. It was overall it was a good game for the Sharks. They did a lot of good things. Unfortunately, at this time of the year, that doesn't mean anything. You're down. You're down the second leg, and you've lost 9 out of 10, and you can do all those good things, but if you're not getting that done on the scoreboard and you're not winning, it doesn't really mean anything in the end.
Yeah, and of course the Sharks would get some good chances on the power play, but it wasn't enough. Then it goes into shootout. Zegras tamed himself.
He was actually pretty chill. I was kind of sitting there. I was just kind of sitting there waiting. I was like, what's he gonna do today? Um, because he is fun to watch. He's very he's young and flashy, and it's great entertainment. But that last one in the shootout like actually hit Reimer's pad and then jumped over because he'd sprawled out and stopped it, and then it hopped, and you watched him. He knew he stopped it, and then he saw it go over and just went.
Yeah.
Because he'd been on that too, and it was just such an unfortunate just bounce over. You could see him get deflated, and
yeah.
Still Lars gets credit. Like,
right.
He did a really good job. So, hats off to him, I guess. But yeah, the Sharks did a lot of good things, but they have to win games. That's all that it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean they do pick up a point, so they're at 50 points. They're 22-22-6 now, but they have. I mean, looking at the standings right now, they got a lot of ground to make up with everybody with those games in hand. While the Sharks were off for about 2 weeks, which by the way that was nice. They sit 7th in the wild card, and Anaheim's hanging tight with the Kings for that last playoff spot in the last wild card. I mean, granted, outside of when Calgary went on a roll and Edmonton, all of a sudden Wonder Boy Jay Woodcroft, gets called up from Bakersfield.
Look at Jay Woodcroft,
right?
Doing big things.
It's kind of weird because it's like it's a division rival, but you're so proud of the guy because he did so much work for Todd McLellan here in San Jose and in his time for Edmonton.
Just knowing how much work he put in, how much he learned over that time. So when I found out that he was getting appointed head coach, I was like, "Oh, Jay." Yeah, so good. I mean that's awesome for him. Good for him.
Good for him. Yeah.
And it seems like their locker room is responding well to him and what he's doing, which is pretty amazing given that Edmonton's such a train wreck. So.
Right, that's just seems like a craziness going on in there with everything falling apart. Then you add Evander Kane. We saw that weird press conference where Tippett looked all weird, and then you have the entire pissy comment about from Draisaitl. It was just a clusterfuck there, and that's just crazy.
Not great, dude.
Yeah. So yeah, the Sharks currently sit 9 points out of a playoff spot with, granted Anaheim has played 3 more games than them, but you're looking at Anaheim, Dallas, Vancouver, Winnipeg, and LA to leapfrog right now. So it's a tough one to take. They're now 3-5-2 in the Pacific, which has been the daunting task for them. And granted, it's nice to see Aiden Hill starting to get back. He's on IR. good to hear that potentially Erik Karlsson is starting to skate a little bit. Same with Kevin LeBanc, but Karlsson is, I don't want to say ahead of schedule, but he's progressed more than LeBanc has.
Well, different injuries and different severities of injuries. LeBanc was banged up really, really, really bad.
Yeah, that was a
So
bad
they're
one.
being as ginger as possible with him. Erik Karlsson, I think this is about he's somewhat sort just because he's getting to he's gonna stay out there and try to keep his legs active. He's matured a lot in the time that he's been with the Sharks, and he's not gonna just sit back and be injured. He's gonna try his best to keep himself in shape right now. Um, and Aiden Hill, I mean, they need Aiden Hill healthy because, like, the whole point, at the start of the season was to have more of a tandem. And even when Hill kind of started to falter after a few starts and Reimer was getting more starts, you were still seeing Hill get in there a little bit more. Reimer just has his best stuff when he has a couple more breaks in there. That just kind of keeps him fresh. That's just kind of where he's at, and the Sharks just haven't been able to do that with between Hill, not being great a lot of the time, and then being injured. So that plan's kind of gone out the window. So if they can get him back healthy and in net, that would be huge.
That'd be massive. But is there even a chance that Bob could go with Sachenko, especially?
I was actually kind of surprised that he didn't go with Sachenko tonight, just with how heavy the next two teams are. I mean, so we'll definitely see Sachenko over the weekend. I would assume against Seattle.
Yeah.
Just because it's the lesser of the two evils, because Boston's as they traditionally are, they're a very heavy team. They're a tough team, and they're they just spanked the Avalanche yesterday. That was a bloodbath of a game.
Wow.
And they're battling to get into a better position come playoff time. So they're going to go on a roll. They're on their California swing. They're going to be tough to play. I would think that Reimer would go in on Saturday against Boston. And then, even though the Islanders are, they're the Islanders, they're also a tough team, and they typically play the Sharks pretty tough. So I would assume that it would be Reimer probably looking at Thursday, Saturday, and then Sachenko, unless something magical happens and Hill comes back.
That's what I was going to say. Unless Hill makes a dramatic recovery and he gets a start Sunday.
Yeah.
So this is a stretch that I think a lot of Sharks fans were kind of expecting to see, whether or not it's a good one or a bad one, and you're going through the tough pains of missing one of your best defensemen. Granted, LeBanc was kind of playing the fourth line for the most part when he got hurt. He's still one of your scorers. We haven't heard a whole lot from Knyzhov. I assume that's not looking good for the year.
When we talked to Joel, I got the impression, Joel holds his cards pretty close to the vest. So, but yeah, somebody had asked about Knyzhov, and it was he hadn't progressed like they thought he would, or something like that. We haven't even seen him skate at all. So not entirely sure if it was worse than they expected, or what the deal was.
Yeah,
it's almost looking, lack of a better comparison, even though it wasn't this bad, but when Rafi Torres had to have the cadaver taken out of his knee and he was gone and nobody knew what was going on, and it was, he's not progressing well. It's like, okay, well, is he coming back or not? So I don't think we're seeing Knyzhov this season.
That's a bummer, because I thought he looked really good last year and really made a name for himself. Hopefully he can, not to feed off of the theme of the season, hopefully he can bounce back for next season. So this is a little weird. I have comments from the locker room. You're with me.
That's fun.
So let's see. Logan Couture. I think it's natural when you get to this point. If you're on the outside looking in, you start thinking about the deadline. Booger told us to let it go and just play.
So Curtis probably asked about the trade deadline again. um, Hi, Curtis. Yeah, it's this. The guys are getting asked a ton about if they're thinking about it or not.
Right.
Um, and it's typically, I don't think about that. I don't focus on that. Couture always being honest, even when it hurts, definitely. So that kind of says, oh no, I'm thinking about it. I'm looking at that. Oh yeah.
How are? Let me ask you this before we move on. How are the guys doing? I know that's kind of a tough one to ask, but I know it seemed like they were with boosted confidence, but I think with this streak going on right now, I can understand if the frustrations are coming in, and then now the trade deadline is starting to loom on top of trying to get a playoff spot.
Yeah, it's harder to tell just with how the setup is with because of COVID. And we still don't have dressing room access. We still have to stay up, so you're not able to go to guys stalls to talk to them. And which is when you don't have cameras, it's always easier to get kind of a feel. No, but guys who have come out to talk have admitted that they're frustrated, and you can see in how they're playing that that they're frustrated. And I think that a lot of frustration has come through the fact that that stretch that they had, that road trip that they had right before the big break, even those couple of losses that they had, some of those OT losses, they played well and they were still getting points.
Right.
And and then to have that momentum and be like so close to breaking out and then having to go on a break, I think that really, really killed things. And that has come back up. The fact that they had this long layoff and now we're having trouble getting something going. So yeah, there's definitely, a feel of frustration. It's probably even worse in the dressing room than when they come out in front of the camera, to be honest. But you can see it, you can even see it in how guys are playing, that it's just yeah, something's going to break their way. But with this line, I almost feel a little bad. I made a comment to Ted Ramey coming out of the break that they're so inconsistent they can't even put a losing streak together, and I'm really biting my tongue right now.
Oh no! Yikes!
I
Hey,
mean, I'm not a fan. It's fine,
hey,
but
we.
yeah, but long story short, yeah, there's definitely a sense of frustration.
Yeah, and it's you feel for them, and it's tough. And then I guess from the fan standpoint, it's like where is this team going? It's like, can you
Yeah,
give us a clue? And I think there's on top of trying to fight for a playoff spot, you but at the same time you also know the kids need to get in. But Jonathan Dolan gets scratched. You wonder what's going on there. It's nice to see Jasper Weatherby back up. I thought he
yeah.
looked really good in his time. Yeah, maybe a fresh cup of coffee, get some more game time with the CUDA was nice. But I really liked him up there, especially being. I always like to see that Tomas Holmstrom type of guy
Yeah.
on the power play, and I liked what Weatherby was doing on there. But we hope to see things turn around. At the same time, I know there are a number of you, and I see you all in the chat, wondering, hey,
Oh my, lots of comments.
oh yeah, I
Oh
mean,
boy.
there's we won't go to all of them, but I mean, there's a lot of wondering where this team's going, why are they constructed this way? Can they compete this way? Um, I mean, it's and it's tough because it's like you play puck possession, you play defense first. Now you got to try to open it up offensively. What next happens here, and with the deadline. It's tough to not say, we're trying to fend it off, but there are guys that could be going, and it depends on these, not just this week, maybe the following week too. That's got to be on their heads.
I imagine that they were looking at things last week too. Um, when Joe Will said, "Oh, well, we're gonna, look at things over the next 5 weeks," and I was like, "No, you guys are probably looking at stuff immediately and really taking like this stretch of games." And now with the losses and with the difficulties, I think they're taking a really hard look at. Sharks Brass isn't going to say that, of course. It's a business thing. But I do understand where fans are coming from asking where this team is going, because the team doesn't look like it knows where it's going. And so it would behoove them to make, some good changes at the deadline. What those are, we'll see. They don't have a ton of cap space, so they can't do a complete overhaul, unfortunately. Right. And that gets into some very, very messy things.
Very messy conversations too.
But I do believe I do think that they're already looking at things. I mean, the whole thing with bringing Dzingel in, I think that's just the start.
Yeah, and like we hit up off the top of the program, I liked what he brought tonight. I think that was a nice pickup. He's wearing a fabulous jersey number. To be very honest, not going to be jealous that somebody's wearing my number, Brody, but but it's one of those things where you see where they're going, but it's like, okay, what is the fans are thinking? What is the message that's to send? Is that they're trying to salvage this, try to make a run for it, or is it this is just a hold?
Yeah.
And I see PJ saying, does he stick around after this season?
Yeah. As of right, it's only been one game, and that's totally a fair question. I get the impression that pretty much I don't think they're bringing anybody in right now on a long-term thing. I think if the plan is to make a push and get into the playoffs, they're bringing guys in to salvage just the rest of this season and get in. I don't think anybody's being signed to anything super crazy by the trade deadline.
Yeah, and I think that's where the players can be on the edge right now, and I think it shows. Especially like a guy like Tomas Hertl, where a whole lot of things kind of can go up or down if he stays or not. So you are the eyes and ears for us fans. So our info via Twitter and on NHL.com. Of course, we would be remiss about mentioning about what took place on Sunday night. I gotta ask first off, how was the popcorn?
I didn't have any of the popcorn at that point. At that point, being late, I try not to eat too late, which is very hard on game night. I did not. No, Janice tried to hand me popcorn multiple times. I was like, no, really, I'm good. I just want to go home. No, we ended up only being. Once I was done with my gamer, we were only still kept inside for maybe like an hour and a half. So it ended up not being too bad. But when I first got downstairs and, okay, it's early, I get to get home early. I have to be up at 6 o'clock for one of my other jobs. This is great. And then the usher was like, yeah, you can't leave. And I was like, why? There's activity going on out there. I was like, that doesn't tell me anything. And he goes, well, it could be. I was like, I need to go home. I just got off work. He goes, well, it could be up to 3 hours. And I was like, I'm not. No, my car's right there in front. I want to go home. And he goes, well, you can get an Uber to go home. And I was like, I live in San Francisco, bro. That's not going to happen. So thankfully, they got that whole thing cleared up. I think by the time I was about to leave, they were already kind of wrapping up their sweep of the area and making sure everything was okay. So I think by that point it was cool, but they blocked off like the first like three or four rows of cars, and of course mine's in like the second row, like right up next to where they had the barricade. And I was like, no,
You're like, great, thanks.
never parking there ever again.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
No more princess parking for Shalana.
They just need to shift it over a little bit,
Right?
and everything. Not gonna lie, if I get to the tank early, I'm usually like in those first couple rows, so it's like,
Oh yeah.
oh man. And then I heard Curtis was trying to convince you to buy drinks for everybody if the
Well,
bar was open.
he came down later, but we were like at opposite ends of the thing. So when he tweeted that, like right when he tweeted that, they'd like shut the bar down maybe like a couple minutes before, and so I was like, dude, I would have gotten us around, but no, it was we ended up leaving actually not that long after that, so I wouldn't have wanted to have to like chug a beer before driving. That would not have been good.
No, that would be icing
Not
on the power
safe.
play, which is
Don't
never
drink and
good.
drive, kids.
Nope. 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 Our poll question tonight: will you continue to attend Sharks games through a rebuild? We've heard some of that come out from last summer. 56% of you have said yes, you would. 23% would say no, and 21% of you have said already stopped attending, which is
Yeah,
kind
that
of
sounds
strange.
about right. Since it's so sad seeing how small the crowds are, and that started before this losing streak.
Yeah.
It's just people. I don't know if it's. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's previously it was COVID restrictions. I think really scared people off. I don't know if that's still the case. I don't know if it's because people would rather stay home. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that a lot of time the Warriors play at the same time.
Yeah.
There are all sorts of things. But it's sad because I've covered losing seasons for them before, and they still have, upwards of, like 14, 15,000 people. And now they're like barely cracking 10.
Yeah.
It's like Barracuda game
Yeah.
crowds right now.
And they've gone below Cow Palace numbers, so that's the first time I've
That's
seen
when
that
you know
effort.
it's bad.
Yeah.
That's when you know. I can tell there's less people in there without even looking because it's colder in there than it normally is. Like there aren't enough people to like generate heat.
It's like I need
Way
a
too
blanket up top.
right?
You're already closer.
Blankets and purse hooks.
Jonathan Becker, if you're watching, just make sure we have purse hooks for Shalina, on Thursday, please. So
I tried to lobby to get a wine fridge in Kurtz's spot, and they didn't let me do that after he left.
what's
I was like, dude, next time you come, I was like, dude, next time you're in town, there's going to be a wine cooler and like beer taps in your old spot.
sorry, Kurz.
Sorry, buddy.
We have some nice Cabernet Sauvignon.
Sorry.
or
Except
my
now, except now I sit in his seat, so it's my seat now.
Take that, Kurz. AJ, what happens first? Trade deadline day or Noah Gregor scores a goal?
That's a great question.
Poor guy. I mean,
That's a great question. It just no, and Noah Gregor he gets so much flack. There's always at least one player who gets the most flack out of anybody. I remember a few seasons ago when it was Melker Carlson, and
Yep.
he hated me because just he couldn't do anything right. And fans just Noah Gregor, yeah, I remember watching him last year and being like, oh my gosh, this guy has so much potential. But you want to talk about guys who are showing their frustration? Noah Gregor showing his frustration because even when he doesn't score, he's got so much speed. He's really, really fast, and he isn't even skating as fast as he normally does. You can tell that he's already in his head like, I'm not going to score. You can just see it. And I noticed that when he first came up and he charged the net, and then he would start holding up short. He was already kind of not quite going for it when he would get a good break, and that's part of the problem. But now he's gotten to the point where you can tell the frustration has set in, and he doesn't even accelerate as much anymore when he gets a break. You can already tell that he's like, I'm not going to get this, and that's not good.
No, you need that confidence boost big time. And he had that breakaway, I think, in the first period, and then the second period on a delayed penalty call, he just gets stoned after a nice pass from Barabanov.
Yeah. in this, I mean, the organization clearly has just so much confidence in him.
Right.
They really like him. They're really in his corner, and they really want him to get that goal. But I know I want to answer AJ's question. I'm not going to lie though. I think the trade deadline is going to come first before Noah Gregor's. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. To which I think Jerry F says, "Oh no, not again." Yeah.
Clever.
Nice one, Jerry F. And by the way, thank you for your Venmo donation. Of course, all donations go help support the show and make sure that there's extra wine in Kevin Kurz's old seat for Thursday against the New York Islanders, which, oh no, they're in stealth mode again. Are you surprised at how that has really trended?
No, not at all. Not at all. The aggression toward the black armor from days of old. So once the stealth jerseys came up, I was like, this can't be good. This isn't going to be good. I mean, right now they're not winning in any jersey, so right. you can't really. But it's just what it is. I love all the superstition around sweaters. It's just so great. It's so fantastic. I love it in like other sports too. It's one of my favorite things. But the stealth, I remember when they first rocked the stealth jerseys. I think they went like 2-0 to start, and then they lost like 3 straight or something. And everyone's like, "Nope, burn them. It's over.
Like,
it's
here
done."
We go. I don't care if it has the fancy little circuitry with the little hidden SJ in there, which I absolutely love. But yes. It's like
I mean they are slick. They are slick looking sweaters, but yeah, I knew that the second they lost them, that fans would just be like, "No."
Felix wants to know what your favorite jersey iteration is.
I like the old school. I like the super old school 90s teal ones. I like that they brought back for the anniversary. I love those. I think those should be their alternates. I think when you've got that great shaded teal, that you should just run with it. It's a great color, and I love that jersey so much. It's beautiful. It drove me nuts, and since I don't get jerseys or anything, I don't usually have as much of an opinion on it. But it drove me nuts. They didn't wear their throwbacks for the outdoor game, and they had those like Neapolitan stripe, whatever the heck those were. Just so hideous.
Welcome to Jersey Ice Cream Talk with Chilean Goldman.
That would be. I would totally do that podcast. That sounds great.
Hey, all I'm going to say is you're in San Francisco now, and I drive out from Concord to go to Swenson's. I think it's on Union and Hyde.
Yup.
And
there's 2 of them. There's one, there's the one on Union, and then there's one that's down deep in the Mission.
Yeah, and
that's some good stuff.
And their vanilla custard. I know that sounds plain, but their vanilla custard has so good flavor.
All their stuff. It is the bomb.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny to be talking about ice cream right now because it is. I don't know if it was like this in out in the Bay for you, but we got hail here today.
Really?
It's very cold. I talked to my folks. My folks are in San Ramon, and they had so much hail that it was like snow. And my mom was like scraping ice off of her car.
Of course, as it usually happens in Concord, Walnut Creek, it was sunny skies. I got nothing. It's like, okay, oh, it's cold out. Oh, the wind made it colder. Okay. Yeah, it's one of those things.
My mom texts me and texts me this video of it hailing, like monstrous hail, and I look out my window, and it's blue sky, but it's that's how the burbs are. Like it could be like raining in Danville, and you get into San Ramon, which is like right next to it, and it's like, oh, it's just a little breezy.
Yeah.
Weird. Bay Area microclimates are weird. We've gone from ice cream to like meteorology.
That's right.
We're covering all the bases tonight.
We'll have traffic coming up in just 2 minutes, folks. In case you missed anything or you want to watch this again, check us out on tealtownusa.com or your favorite podcatcher, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Smash that subscribe button on YouTube. It really does help us out a big time. You can also check us out on SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio. And again, always available at tealtownusa.com. And you know who's always available at NHL.com is Chilean Goldman. My dear, you are wonderful. I always appreciate you helping us out and coming on and giving us any information on that. Your final thoughts and where people can find your work.
I do write for NHL.com now. It's pretty basic gamer type stuff. So if you want to talk about something specific, I am absolutely down to have conversations with people. If you come at me, gangbusters and aggro, I'll probably tell you to shut up. But I'm always down to talk, and I'm always down to give a little bit of insight. So I am at Chilean Goldman. Come by and say hi, if nothing else.
Absolutely. I'm at Puckeye14 on the Twitter, the Instagram. One more before we get out of here. Another question for Chilean. Do you think Trevor Zegras is the next big thing in the NHL in terms of creative goals?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting. Creative goals. Absolutely. It would be really cool to see him, but also just become well-rounded where he does everything. Because if you're just, the one-trick pony that just does, just has the Michigan up your sleeve all the time, that's not quite as fun. But yeah, absolutely. He's and even just the way that he generates offense, he's incredibly creative. He's really fun to watch. He's one where I'll if I even just hear that he scored a goal, I'll look up a highlight.
Right. Which of course is a nightmare because he plays in the same division as the Sharks.
Of course. But I like just like I said, just even the way that he even sets his own goals up. He's creative goals, absolutely.
I knew when watching him during the World Juniors he was going to be something special, and then I looked up, I was like, oh crap, he's a Ducks prospect. Frick. Oh jeez. And again, thank you, Shalina, as always. We'll be back with you Thursday night following Sharks and Islanders. Will the Sharks break out of their slump? Will they break out of their stealth mode slump? And how much crap will Shalina give Kevin Kurz on his return back to the Shark Tank?
Ooh.
We'll see. Until then, thank you so much for watching. We really do appreciate it. Shalina, thank you so much as well.
Thank you for having me.
And until then, keep it real, keep it teal, keep it real teal. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you Thursday night following the Sharks and Islanders.